All right, so for the panel, allow me to introduce Vipul Nakun from OAG, Chief Product Officer. And then from...
Thank you.
And then next up, Dean Smith, President of America's Flight Center Travel Group. And Eric Frymuth, Group CMO, Managing Director of Hotels and Resorts at TUI Group.
Morning.
And last but not least, Jerome Thiel, Vice President of Digital Innovation at Singapore Airlines.
Thanks.
And Angela Shi, who will be moderating the panel. Thanks.
All right, let's give a warm welcome to all of our amazing panelists today who will kick off the conversation. So 1914, almost or more than 100 years ago, the world witnessed the first commercial passenger aircraft. And about 25 years ago, 1994, we saw the first online booking from a consumer traveler. Now today, the travel world has been evolved so much, and we have come a long way as an industry. So this panel is going to be about what's next in travel and how we're going to get there. Let's jump right in. Why don't we do a quick introduction here, of your organization, what each of you do at your team. Let's kick off with Vipul.
Sure. Thank you very much, Angela. So Vipul Nakun, pleasure to be here, Chief Product Officer at OAG. That heritage you talk about, over 100 years. So OAG actually started its first publication of data back in 1929. So we're a very mature startup, if we can call ourselves that. So we're a large provider, world's largest provider of travel intelligence. Our data and analytics are plugged in throughout the air travel ecosystem. So our customers are airlines, airports, airport services, major travel techs, and startups in this ecosystem. And our data is used to be able to help them to compete and thrive by building appropriate solutions. So our customers are using our information to be able to grow their business, streamline operations, and ultimately delight the traveler. And we are here as a corporate partner of Plug and Pay just to make sure that we continue to be plugged in to how the variety of data can be used through the ecosystem.
Great. Dean Smith is my name. I'm the president of the Flight Center Travel Group here in the Americas. Flight Center Travel Group perhaps is the largest travel agency group you've never heard of. We're based in Australia, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. You're hearing a New Zealand accent if you're interested, so you can say whatever you like about Australians. I probably agree with you. So we're about a $20 billion company in Australian dollars annually. In the US, Canada, Mexico, and Argentina business that I'm responsible for, we have about $3.5 billion of sales, billion US dollars a year. We operate in leisure, corporate, youth segments of the market. We are looking for innovative partners to partner with. We are here for acquisition. We are here for investment. We have acquired recently UMAPT, which we met through this program. And yes, we were on the board as the investor in Upside this year, and the dollar amount will remain undisclosed.
Okay, morning everyone. Angela, thanks for having us. I'm representing TUI. TUI is a German leisure travel group. We operate as a tour operator, serve more than 28 million customers a year. And we also are active in hotels and cruise, have more than 370 hotels and a couple of cruise ships. I mean, we are really interested to be here. We are here for a couple of years, have done a POC with one of the companies from last year, and really looking forward to being with all of you.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Angela. Really glad to be here with you today. I've been with Singapore Airlines only for a year. I mean, as you can see, I'm not a typical Singaporean, right? I still don't know if I'm more a French Singaporean or a Singaporean French. But I've been living in Singapore for 14 years so far. Singapore Airlines came into this digital transformation innovation program quite recently. But maybe as you know, hey, how many of you flew Singapore Airlines in the past? Okay, raise your hands. Okay, so it's definitely not our domestic market here, right? So we joined this game a little bit more than a year ago, and as you know, Singaporeans, when they decide something, they commit really big time. So we have a CEO commitment on making like concrete progress in this journey. And I'm very happy to be the one leading this digital innovation program for Singapore Airlines, which is a huge, important program for us.
Great.
And I'm here really happy to, we did startups. We really did the horsepower that startups represent. And what the better place than here to get connected with you guys and try to do something in the future.
Great. Thank you for the brief introduction and kicking off this conversation. All of you, represent a very different stakeholder in the travel industry. I'm curious to hear from your seats, where do you see the most potential in the industry, and what are some either projects or technologies that you're excited about? I love cold calls. Jerome, why don't you
All right.
start this
Okay,
time?
I'd pick it. It's a very complex question. But the way I would answer to this is if I look at the way my kids are using mobile, right, their mobile phone today, it's quite surprising. You should take time if you haven't done so, watching the way they're using. And I've realized the importance of the messaging app. Mm-hmm. They pretty much do. I mean, I was surprised my daughter picking up pictures through the messaging app rather than going in the gallery, and pretty much everything like that. So I'm like trying to figure out what this means. Because she's like now 13 years old. She's going to be flying. She's going to be a Singapore Airlines customer anytime soon. And we have to understand that this move, right, this shift which is happening. And I think messaging platforms are becoming more and more important. I don't know how important they're going to be. But imagine when I look at the kids using the messaging app for pretty much everything and anything instead of using the native apps. Whenever the messaging apps provide it, I don't know if you guys are familiar with WeChat in China. For those who have ever used WeChat, which is the WhatsApp of China, if you will, or the Facebook of China, it's very surprising what's happening there. And I think we are quite fascinated, and we look very closely on that. And I think that's a source of inspiration for us there. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, maybe I go on. For us, it's definitely tours and activities. I mean, we've seen the valuation of Get Your Guide and Klook. We've acquired a business in Italy called Musement, and we try to combine this with our, let's say, customer base of almost 30 million customers. It's also a service that helps us to stay in touch with our customers more regularly, because normally a tour operator is a sun and beach proposition, so once or twice a year. But with that, we are able to, let's say, serve our customers much more often. Maybe besides that, it's really aggregation. So content and offer aggregation is one of our main interests and is where we put the money actually.
So we're still very much looking through the customer journey, those touch points, those opportunities where we can enhance the customer experience and link that in with a human interaction with our people. We're a human-based agency group. Maybe that seems odd to some people in the room, but our best revenues and our best profits come through relationships that are built strongly between our people and the traveller or the corporation. And so anything that can enhance that experience, anything that can make our people better, that make them appear better, and anything I think where the machine can act like a person. Instead of creating machines to replace the person, how can that really great skill, the mind that goes on in our best people's mind, be incorporated into the machine to make the experience better for everyone, including our not so good people and the customer itself. So they're the areas that are of most interest to us.
And from my perspective, I'd like to resonate what you said, Dean, is that what we find from OAG's experience of working with a variety of partners in the ecosystem, it's the power of data. Data is the foundation of everything in terms of decision making. So some of the most exciting areas of innovation that we see is where technologies and data analytics are really building predictive outcomes or prescriptive outcomes. And some of the exciting ones that I see, there's a friend of Plug and Play, a company called Lumo, came through the previous batch, doing exciting things around predicting flight delay. But then we also have other partners or prospects out there doing really exciting things. You know, Abhi Gatwick, I know you're doing some incredible things with data. And just now he asked me for some more data in terms of what he could do with it. So it's about the essence of how can you provide analytical insight with predictiveness and prescriptiveness so you minimize and really solve the problems, what we saw in the opening video here, make the travel experience smooth.
Awesome. I hope all the startups in the audience are taking notes. So Dean, you mentioned about recent acquisition.
Sure.
I'm curious to hear, in terms of approach for each of your organization, how do you approach a new project when it comes to technology and innovation? Is it through acquisition, is it through capital investment, or sometimes it may be through internal R&D or commercial pilot? How do you make that determination?
So you're probably not surprised to hear that it's all of those. It's a combination. We identify the problem, therefore the opportunity, and then we assess the best way to tackle that. Sometimes we learn about things that we weren't aware of through events like this, so we can go, okay, that's a new way to look at that. But the example of, say, Upside was to go back to, they have worked on some predictive pieces through data, through customer data, and we're wanting to say, so my view is that I don't want to be told what's happening. I want to be given the solution. And the problem is I just need to get to my meeting. I don't care that the flight's delayed. So just someone needs to tell me where I need to go to get onto the right plane to get me to that meeting. And that level of predictiveness, but then telling me what to do is what we're looking for. So that was one of the reasons why we like Upside, but we deliberately decided there to go for a minority investment and not a full acquisition. UMapped, on the other hand, we thought had a full solution for one component of the customer journey, which we could acquire completely and give us a competitive advantage in the marketplace through that. So again, it could be an investment, it could be an acquisition. We build things ourselves. We have our labs in Boston, we have labs in Barcelona, Bangkok, Washington, DC, that great tech capital of the world, Brisbane in Australia. And and from there, we build our own things as well. So it's a combination of all of the above.
Got it. Eric, do you have anything to add to this topic, given TUI has such a wide range of touch points in the travel industry?
Yeah, I mean, as just lined out, I mean, you have many different ways to approach, let's say, new businesses. For us, one of the key aspects is really to get it integrated. And the question is, do you keep it separate, running the risk that no one pays attention, or do you really, let's say, integrate it, running the risk that it slows down massively and, let's say, becomes very corporate-like immediately? I mean, we've currently, let's say, having a very intense discussion, I would say, and it's, in the end, from our perspective, of course, it's around people. I mean, the company Musement I was just mentioning is very much driven by the people who founded that business. They are super passionate, and they are making the difference. And we try to keep them in their environment, but still, we would like to link it into our, let's say, sales channels. We need to make sure that the incentives are right. Mm-hmm. And as the business is so small and as our core business is so big, really need to, let's say, put more emphasis and put in some boosters that gives them more attention. I think that's where we are struggling, but that's also where, let's say, the benefit comes in.
Jerome or Vipul, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I've spent a little bit more than 10 years as an entrepreneur running my own startups. I sold my last startup to one of the GDS out there. And I spent a little bit more than 10 years in corporate organizations, large corporate organizations like Singapore. And I've seen both worlds, right? And I'm very cautious and very conscious. I think at Singapore, we try to stay very, very conscious about the fact that we have to be very cautious when moving and building something with startups. We have no programmatic intention to acquire startups. If it happens, and it's great. But it's due to circumstances, context. But we'll always be very cautious in making sure that we let them run their operation at best, and keep them away as much as possible from what I would call the nonsense when you're on the other side, right? Which is not nonsense. Having been with corporate organizations, I've really enjoyed it, surprisingly. But all in all, I think it's a very difficult job to marry those two, different entities and make them work successfully together. Yep. And we have started the journey a year ago, so we were very, very new. We're still a baby in this process, and we have a lot to learn from you, more than you can probably learn from me. So really happy to share ideas and get your ideas on that. But step by step, we take baby steps.
If I can just add, from OAG's perspective, we're a little bit different. We didn't come to plug and play specifically to look for innovation and the problems we have at OAG, but it was more about a key theme that we struck in terms of our strategy, which is innovation through collaboration. We know at OAG, with all of our plethora of data analytics, we're not going to solve every single use case out there. So what we felt we needed to do was to offer our data and capabilities out to the ecosystem, and that's our investment, to accelerate the travel ecosystem, use of data, and all the variety of use cases. So innovation for us, yes, we are solving challenges and problems inside OAG, and it's about data analytics, but we also know that we can supercharge the wider audience here with the use of our data and how we can partner around that.
And quite a few of you touch upon, the incentive and the people structure within the organization. Oftentimes, as we know in the audience here, both on the corporate side and the startup world, it's very difficult for the two parties to work together, and that's often a bottleneck for a lot of innovation within the organization. So what have you seen that works well within your team? Whether it's around people structure, whether it's around, do you have any particular tips for startups who are looking to partner with you on innovation?
So if I can take a stab first here, as number one, really tight alignment around strategic objective in that collaboration. And startups, if you're talking to a partner out there or a prospect, help try and get understanding of where that strategic objective it ranks within all of their other strategic objectives. Is it the number one item, or is it the 525th item in that rank? Because then it will tell you whether you're going to get resources available, collaboration, partnership, and that cohesiveness. I think that's number one. So strategic alignment is the first and foremost item. And do you have that executive sponsorship inside that organization in terms of that collaboration? Number two, team alignment, resources. We find that we work really well with partners where we've got resources lined up internally at OAG and on the other side as well. Makes a huge difference. So those are the two key takeaways. Number one, strategic alignment, and where does it rank in terms of their need?
So I think to follow up on that would be, where's the passion? So, we see a lot of people come through my office in Montvale in New Jersey, and I'm looking for someone to say, we're just absolutely passionate about this customer and solving this customer's problem. If that aligns with our passion, then we're on our way to getting it fit. And we'll be perfectly honest when we say, actually, that's not our passion. That's not gonna be a marriage that's gonna work for us. And the other piece, which sometimes perhaps is overlooked, is culture. We do talk a lot about trying to keep them separate and not interfere, but ultimately you're joining a family, and every family has a culture. The Flight Centre culture is quite distinct. So we're very conscious about making sure that those people who may join us, even from an investment perspective, that we're going to get along together on a cultural level.
Yeah, maybe in addition, we talked about culture and people already. I think it's sponsorship. If I see that, it's important, of course, to have strong contacts to, let's say, group strategy or these kind of departments within a corporate. But it's also very important to get to the people who really run the business and to create a strong personal relationship and get someone who's really keen of sponsoring you. In the case of TUI, we have many regional organizations, and I would always recommend to become a friend of one of those regional organizations and maybe start a little bit smaller, maybe not on the highest corporate level, but maybe more on, again, this regional level to create some success and then create this momentum that gets you then also into the other, let's say, territories.
I'm going to share a little bit the way we do it at Singapore Airlines. And I'm not saying this is the way you guys should do it, because it works for us, but it might not work for other organizations. But we have a kind of a unique way of starting point and kicking off innovation. Anyone at Singapore Airlines, a cabin crew, a pilot, a ground staff, an engineer, can come at any time to us with an idea. The only thing you need is an idea. We're going to look at the idea. If the idea is interesting, if the business believes that the idea is interesting, then you, as an idea submitter, you're going to own the idea. You're going to build your prototype. You're going to build the proof of concept, the solution eventually. It's your solution, right? Why is that very important? The way I used to describe what we do is we don't do innovation. My team doesn't do innovation. What we do is we help people becoming innovators. And why is that important? Because think about the procurement lady, her name is Stella. She came to us like 6 months ago with an idea for a mobile app. And she goes through the process of building the app with us. We help her, right? She's not a programmer or coder by any means, but we help her building this app together. And she goes through this process, through this transformation process. She lives an experience, the pain, the difficulties, and the joy, right, of building that with us. And that's a transformation process, right? So we do it with 1, 5, 10, 50, 100 people, right? Going through this process of building something, putting innovation in action. Why is that important? I'm going to come to the startup point in a minute. It's important because when you do it that way, at least it works really well for us. It creates, they shine. It's their time. They come and present their app to an audience of 300 people internally, to the CEO and the leaders. Imagine this procurement lady coming back home with her mobile app, sharing this with her family, kids, husband, friends. This is my app. I did it. So imagine the sense of fulfillment and recognition they get from this experience, right? And other people look at that and they want their own, same experience. And it's creating a viral effect. And right now we have a difficult time to cope with the volume of ideas coming in. Now, why is that important? Because it's this inside-out process. You have the idea submitter and the business buying in from the beginning. And then when you eventually reach out to a startup, because there is an existing solution out there, because there's always someone doing something similar pretty much, then you engage with the startup with the buy-in of the business and of someone internally carrying the idea forward. And that, to me, has shown, with a little bit more than a year, has shown the virtue of that is once you reach the point where you start engaging and collaborating with the startup, the problem of getting this back to the business or supported by business is almost solved by definition. Okay, again, that's the way we do it. I'm not saying it's the way everything should be done. It has its flip sides, of course, but it's working really well and way beyond our expectations. Over the last 15 months, we have exploded our objectives just because it creates an internal dynamic which is very, very unique. I don't know. I still don't understand why it's happening. It's probably because it's Singapore. It's probably because in Asia. I don't see this happening like that, for example, in France, in my home country. But it's working really well where I am. And so since it's working well, we keep on pushing it, right? Yeah.
We like to see, innovation comes in all sorts of shapes and forms. So if it's happening, that's great. Something's working.
Exactly.
Vipul, I'd like to come back to a point that you mentioned earlier about strategic alignment. Right? Where often there are two types of problems. Sometimes we're just looking at the immediate pain point. We're looking at how to get the next customer in the door, how to solve the next experience problem. But oftentimes there's also long-term industry challenges. How do you, think internally as you're balancing these strategic alignment? How do you dedicate resources? How do you think about to enable moonshot ideas out there?
Yeah, different companies approach that problem in different ways. But the first theme is customers first. Customer intimacy is the first and foremost paramount question out there that we try to instill in OAG at every level of the organization. So we have the account management, the sales organization, product organization, the development teams, the customer support teams. We're asking all of them the same question. Which customers have you spoken to this month? How many of them? What have you learned today? So customer intimacy is number one. Now, then you go off in two different directions. You've got some companies who prefer to have a dedicated innovation team, and that's all they do. And some companies actually have embedded into the existing team. So the way we've done it is we've created agile teams around our various product and solution areas, and we make them accountable, and that's a mixed group of individuals, everyone from, we've got the technology teams, the data team, the support team, salesperson, and of course the product organization, sitting in that area, looking after a product area and the solution sets there. They are responsible for looking after what is incremental and in life today, and they are also looking after what could be a moonshot, what could be coming down for the future. The reason that's important for us is because they're living and breathing the use cases and the problem areas so intimately that they're able to bubble up those ideas. Now, in the future, or as we continue to learn, we may pivot a little bit to say, actually, some of these problem areas are so huge out there, or such a big opportunity, we do need to carve out some time, a special dedicated team for innovation. But right now, we're structured with 7 agile teams, looking at 7 product areas and problem areas for our customers, and they are accountable and measured against innovation in their own area. That's how we approach it.
Got it. Anyone else have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I said it already. We are struggling a bit by integrating or separating it, and it's always this fine line that we need to manage. I'd say also when we talk about innovation in our core business, we are much better because we have much more competence and more people who are familiar with it. If we then talk to people who bring something completely new, we need some time ourselves to prepare the organization to really onboard not only the solution as such, but also the culture and the people. So it depends a little bit of how we are doing it. You were asking the question, what is the long-term challenge for us? And for TUI, our heritage is a very strong relationship to our customers and the confidence and the trust the people have into our brand, as well as the people they've interacted with. As our sales is now beyond 50% digital, it's more and more difficult to keep that, let's say, confidence and trust. And the question is, what can you do through digital means to, let's say, not only keep the trust you've created, but also to create that trust with, let's say, customers you haven't had before. And that's a very, very difficult process because on the one hand side, CRM, of course, is being made to sell more. But on the other side, where do you, or how do you manage this balance of giving advice and being nice to your customer, and at the same time being pushy and making sure that the CPO and these kind of things still work?
Yeah, and we're a public company, so the moonshot idea doesn't rest particularly well with some of our boards of directors. You know, just spend money and see how it goes. So that probably isn't within our culture. We are looking probably into the not the short term, but that next phase of disruption, and how can we be partnering with people to ensure that the customer experience keeps getting enhanced and that we're at the forefront of that and not on the back foot. So I think we're very much in that what's the customer need today and tomorrow, but not maybe in 20 years' time quite yet.
Jerome, do you have additional
just a
comments?
short comment. When you fly with Singapore Airlines, I flew with Singapore Airlines a lot. Again, I've lived in Singapore for 14 years, so I flew with them a lot before joining them. I love this company, this airline. You get this extra care, this extra touch. I don't know how to define it, right? And this is not the result of some magic. This is due to the fact that we spend 3 or 4 times more time, resources, and money in training our cabin crews, right? So this is our core value proposition. And digital innovation cannot be a substitute to that. That's very important to keep in mind. So everything we do, every initiative we take comes and is supported and backed up by the business, because this company has been successful and is probably one of the best airlines in the world today because of its people, right? I joined last year. The Singapore Airlines didn't wait for me to join to become innovative, right? So I think what we want here to do is making sure that we lift up what digital enables and all these methodologies and technologies, but always serving the purpose of making our customer happy and service excellence and making a delightful experience flying with Singapore Airlines. That's what we're looking at, always. So it's a conscious decision. It means that we don't go off track very easily, that we don't get excited with moonshots, exactly like you. It's more like an incremental innovation process. It's not there is no wrong or right way, if you will, of doing innovation, right? It's just a way we choose, and we believe helps us really moving forward. And with the experience I shared just earlier, bringing our staff into this journey together, I think we have all the ingredients, hopefully, to, in the next few years, getting the company to be a true digital airline. Yeah.
Great. Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about how your corporation would innovate, how you see the industry. Now, if we were to switch gears a little bit, put your entrepreneur hat on, and I'm now giving you an opportunity to tell us about your moonshot idea, your wild idea. You know, if there's a magic wand, what would you want the travel industry, what would you want it to happen?
Yeah, maybe Jerome, you can work on getting,
I don't believe
you can work on getting rid of flight times and these kind of things.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you focus on that?
There's a lot of talk and a lot of concern around the impact of travel on the environment. So how can we create an impactless solution would be something that I'd look forward to.
Something radical. I want to take your magic wand and liberate it to every innovator in the world. So there's billions of wands out there. A couple of caveats, got to have a positive outcome, right? So the innovation has got to be a positive result. And it really kind of gets back to one of my original themes, which is innovation through collaboration. So how do we use the magic wand to drive more collaboration? Don't forget, innovation doesn't happen without failure, right? Through failure, we learn. And so if there were all magic wands out there, could we be where we want to get to? I don't know.
Only wish I can be the genie.
If you remove jet lag from the equation, that would be fantastic. I think there was one startup working on that very, very heavily.
Talk to Mickey afterwards.
And that's a nightmare for me. So really, that would be a great innovation.
Awesome. Well, so this is fantastic conversation, and thank you all for your insights. Again, I think all the startups and the corporates in the world hope everyone in the audience are enjoying the conversation and we're able to take some notes on these magic ideas that we hope to happen, startups especially. So I'd like to please join me and thank our panelists again for this wonderful conversation that we've had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.